so much, everyone, for being here tonight. My name is Nicolas Muñoz. I'm super grateful and honored to be a part of this concert today. I'm going to be teaching you a little bit about some of the instruments that you're going to see today. These are some traditional instruments from South and Latin America. And some of the ones that you heard in this first piece, Anak Pachap Kusikwini, are some of the more iconic and traditional native instruments. The first one is the bombo, which is a percussive instrument, it's the drum. Obviously, all these instruments kind of go back to the 16th, 14th, 1500s. There was no music shops, no plastic even to make these instruments easily. So everything had to be created from what the earth provided us. This is a great example. We have wood from the trees. We also have cow and goat hide. On the top is a more thinner hide to give it a more boomy sound, and then the bottom is a thicker, more wool sound so that it can give it more of a dampening feel. This is called a bombo. There are two types of bombos. This is a bombo criollo, which is literally a tree trunk carved out, hollowed out, and then put the two skins on top and the bottom. There's a second bombo called bombo criollo, or excuse me, bombo legüero, which is a sheet of wood steamed, rolled into a tube, and then they put the two skin heads on the top. These are very traditional in Argentina, Peru, Bolivia, parts of Chile, definitely Uruguay, which is the more iconic chamamé rhythm that they play in the valleys and parts of Argentina and Uruguay. The second instrument that you saw, thank you, is the charango. The charango also in the 1400s used to be made out of the shells of armadillos. As you can tell, the head would be here, the rest of the body. Now, of course, to preserve the animal, they make them only out of wood. Sometimes, even now, they make them kind of like an electric guitar where it's just a block of wood instead of a hollow box. So you have to plug it in order to get a sound. The charango has different techniques. Like any string instrument, it can be strummed. It can be arpeggiated, or one note at a time. Or it can, the more iconic technique is the tremolo, which is playing really fast. We can also combine those techniques, especially the tremolo with the strumming. That's the charango. If anyone here plays the ukulele, you can already play the charango because it has the same tuning. This is kind of like a long-lost cousin of the ukulele and mandolin, because it's got the same tuning as the ukulele, but the same kind of structure as a mandolin where it's double string. So this has 10 strings, 5 rows, 2 strings each. That's the charango.
I'm going to use this microphone and see.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks again for having us here and for being here. We're really happy to have a full house tonight. Thanks to James and to the Motet Choir for having both Nico and me kind of in residency here, working with students. This is an educational project, as you might have gleaned from what Nico was just presenting. It's a shorter concert in terms of repertoire because we really wanted to be able to spend time with the indigenous elements of the music. Many times when people do this repertoire, they're focusing on more of a Western European approach, which is certainly a part of the music, but we really wanted to take time and dig into the Quechua language, the Nahuatl language, and the associated cultures and colonial histories that are parts of those. And in order to do that justice, we just need time in the room with students. So again, thank you to Motet Choir and James for spending time. They worked with recordings that I brought from field work with Quechua and Nahuatl speakers and spent a lot of time really learning these languages and learning the diction and cultural concepts there. So thank you. I'm going to talk a little bit about the New Spanish context, and never fear, this will be the longest talking portion in the concert. You'll hear a lot more music as we go along, and we'll just introduce instruments and individual aspects of each piece briefly as we go along. But I want to give us a little bit of context for New Spain before we start. So what you just heard was Hanak Bachap, and Nico introduced the instruments. It was from what is now modern-day Peru. This whole territory was called New Spain all the way up through what's modern-day Mexico and southern United States, where the Spaniards had colonized the territory. And Hanak Bachap was in Quechua, the language of the Incas there in Peru, and it's the earliest published polyphonic piece in the Americas. So it's something that you'll often hear in repertoire that's sung today of New Spain. It's a processional, and so that's why you hear this very rhythmic motif. And it's in rhythm from the Andean round dances. The original has 20 verses. So if you thought this was long, this is a much shorter version of that. On its face, it's a hymn to the Virgin Mary, if you look at the translations, but it makes veiled references, especially if you see the full 20 verses, to Incan deities throughout. And that's a really wonderful example, as we'll see throughout the rest of the concert, about the ways in which scholars describe this as mutually entangled cultures of indigenous cultures, and many indigenous cultures throughout Latin America, New Spain, and Spanish cultures and other European cultures that were in conversation at that time. Of course, it was a brutally violent period in all of these territories, but it's important for us to not think of it as conquest, and scholars today will advocate for not thinking of it as a one-sided conquest. There is, as you will see in this music, a great deal of indigenous culture that was being advocated for through resistance and through subtle ways of expressing indigenous culture, even in what would seem on its face to be Spanish and Western European classical styles, as you'll see throughout this concert. I wanted to say one other thing. We're gonna play now Diositla Sonancine and Chico Chico Netzintle. Both of these pieces are from Mexico, so we're moving now from Peru to Mexico. And it's in the Nahuatl language of the Aztecs, or the people who are now called Nahuas today. 1.7 million people today speak Nahuatl in Mexico, so it's very much a living language, as is Quechua, in Peru and in other countries nearby. Dios Itla Sonancine is a sacred motet, and so what you'll hear is this beautiful confluence of indigenous rhythms, but also European classical, long legato lines, as you would hear in motet choir singing in churches today. And Chicochi, which will follow, is a secular lullaby, hushing a child to sleep. When Nico and I do residencies in elementary schools, we have the students represent signs for each of the words, and Chicochi means hush. So we always have the students do this. So you might imagine for yourself a bunch of little children as we're singing Chicochi, putting your fingers here and reminding yourself what that word means.
much again. Yeah, and this past tune that we just heard, Shikochi, again, all going back to what the earth provided us back in that time, and also like what the purpose of these instruments and these pieces are. As Bethany mentioned, this is a lullaby, so you can imagine that back in the early 1600s, there weren't rattles, there weren't anything handy like that. So again, everything that came from the earth was used for that. Also, as Bethany mentioned, we're super fortunate to have been selected to go perform in schools back in Minnesota with NPR to show some of the same stuff. And again, a room full of these kids trying to imagine what these are. Anyone here care to take a guess?
Shells from the sea.
Shells, that's our good guess. Hooves, very good. So these are goat hooves. And so as soon as we say that to all the kids, we just hear a chorus of, ew, yeah. And so these are always really fun to bring to schools because of that reaction. And this is what the rattle would have been back then. As you can see, it's got that same purpose. Shells also serve the same purpose. Bones we've gotten also. And then this next tune that we're going to perform for you in Play Cantimo, Choquilia, we're going to fuse a little bit of some modern stuff, some of the instruments that the Spaniards brought and took as well. Like the guitar, one of the good things that they brought was the guitar. Some of the many things that they took also is, which is a misconcepted instrument, which is the cajon, which you'll see me sitting on, which is literally a big box. It's a drum, and it's used all over the world. And a lot of people think that it's from Spain, but it is actually from Peru. And a lot of different construction methods go into this instrument. Nowadays, a lot of people will use what are called snare wires, like on a drum set. There are little wires under it, and they put that inside the box. Now, in South America, what they tend to do is they take guitar strings and put them on the inside, which gives it that little bit of rattle that you'll hear in this next tune. I think that's all. Yeah, the reason why we're using the cajon is because we are trying to find the actual instrument, which would have been an actual donkey jaw. And so you have the bottom of the jaw with some of the teeth in there, and you hit it on the side and it rattles. Or you take an antler, a bone, and you scrape it kind of like a guido. That's what they would have used back then. Again, all going back to what the earth provided, literally a donkey jaw. So unfortunately we couldn't get it today. They're really hard to find here in the US, so hopefully for the next one.
So just a little bit of context about these pieces the choir gets set, the soloists. It's from around 1600. It's in Mexico, from Mexico, in Nahuatl. And you'll see the harpsichord as a European element. We have a lovely electronic harpsichord that we're very grateful for today. And it has a similar sound, actually you'll hear, to the charango. They're both plucked strings, interestingly. The text of this piece is about cheering up the baby Jesus. It was sung in general to cheer up a baby who was crying. Really interestingly, my master's research focused on Mexica, Nahua traditions from this period and how indigenous perspectives came through in music in ways that haven't been previously looked at. So in the soloists' verses, you'll hear these really wonderful ways that Mexica Nahua culture comes through. They talk about flowers and precious minerals, so the rose, pearl, jade, and lily. You'll hear this in cara de rosa, no erpioidotzin, no chanchu, and no azucena. And these are sacred materials for the Mexica people, the Nahua people of the early colonial period. So while on its face this piece is Catholic, Christian, it weaves in through kind of subversively through indigenous people's resistance to colonization, their own religious beliefs. Do you want to do some hemiolas?
Yeah, sure. You want us to start at the...
We talked about maybe doing some examples. So we were going to start at measure 32 and show...
favorite part.
You'll hear it's sort of the end of the chorus where their hemiolas are used throughout the world. It's a 2-against-3 pattern. It was very common in Latin America from this period, and there are some scholars that suggest that it came, many iterations of it came from Latin America to Europe, and that's how some of it may have emerged there. So we'll hear some of these hemiolas in this period. Listen for the 2-against-3. Nico's playing the 3. The choir will be singing what sounds like syncopation or offbeats, but they're hemiolas and not really well thought about as syncopation.
Yes, there's 32, right on. We go like,
Those are some hemiolas for you, and now you'll be able to hear the whole.
fancy hemiolas. And then we have all solos up here. Okay, here we go. From the beginning.
So for this next piece, which is like a mashup of two pieces really, some cachuas, I'm going to show you some flutes that are kind of popular here in the U.S. and they're called pan flutes. So I'm sure you've heard of those. I'll show you several ones. These kind of are popular in Japan, Greece, parts of the Andes regions in South America, parts of Chile, Bolivia, Peru, Ecuador, parts of Colombia as well. And these are literally made of bamboo. We have the most traditional zampoña, and all of these, the pan flutes in Spanish would be called zampoñas, and they're all of different sizes, but they're all referred to as zampoñas. However, each size does have its own unique name. Kind of like how you think about like the string family, which is violin, viola, cello, upright. They're basically the same instrument, just bigger, right? It's the same concept with this. The bamboo grows in the desert, and I'm sure some native person walking by heard the wind blow through these and heard this noise. And the bigger the tube, the lower the sound. The shorter the tube, the higher the sound. So for example, this is called a chulis. Very high. The next one would be the normal zampoña or malta. Then we have the next lowest, which is a zanja. We also have this big boy right here called a toyo. Now, I thought until recently I joined a band here that plays some of this music, and the guy that I work with makes some of these instruments, and he showed me one that I had to get up on a stool to play because it was about this big. So this, you can imagine the low one, and imagine that other low one. So again, this is the zampoña, or panpipes. Now, in Latin America, or especially the musicians, Andean musicians who play this style of music, will tend to multi-instrumentalize, which means that they'll play several instruments at the same time. Usually as street performers, they tend to do that to sound more full, to get more money. And so, I'm going to be showing you a little bit of multi-instrumentation so that we can also hear more than one instrument at the same time. And yeah.
I'll just say a few quick words about this one. So we're back to Peru. We're singing in Quechua. And just so you know, the Quechuas are reversed in order in the program. So if you're looking at the translations, just read the second one first. And they'll be back to back. These are actually from a section of 4 Quechuas. It's beautiful repertoire if anybody wants to play a section of 4 Quechuas. It comes with 2 others. It's from the 1780s, so it's much later than the previous repertoire we're doing. You'll be able to hear that in the music. And again, on its face, it's Catholic for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. You'll hear Spanish and Quechua lyrics in this piece. The Spanish is interestingly pronounced with a Quechua accent. So you'll hear things like, instead of Jesús, you'll hear Jesus. In Quechua, often the E and the E sound are reversed, and the O and the U sound are reversed. So instead of Jesús, Jesus. Instead of que, qui. And there's a lovely word, songuito, which comes from son cachay in Quechua, which means mi corazoncito, my heart, my love. And songuito is a combination of Quechua and Spanish. Son from son cachay, and guito is the diminutive form in Spanish. So we hear throughout the song, there are other examples as well, of combinations of Quechua and Spanish where you see indigenous and European styles melding over the course of centuries.
little bit of the rhythms. These are going to be a cappella. We might have a shaker there somewhere, but these rhythms are more of a party rhythm, if you will. You're going to hear some traditional Cuban guaguancó, which will be accentuated by the clave. Some of you know clave as a rhythm, and as an instrument, it's both. So you will hear this rhythm there. The little altos, I believe, are the ones who are doing this, yeah? And then we'll also hear part of what would be represented in a cowbell, or in more traditional Puerto Rican and Cuban styles of music. It's a big wooden block that they just hit with 2 sticks. And it would sound kind of like this. Those 2 rhythms kind of make up the traditional guaguancó, which you would hear in a lot of Latin American dances when they play salsa, reggaeton, bachata, cumbia, all that stuff. You'll definitely hear this style. And I think later on we'll move also to like a more Brazilian kind of style, a samba or bossa nova, if you guys are familiar with that. And it will be kind of accentuated also with the cajon, since that's all the percussion we got. So, and yeah, I don't think anything else.
Let's start with Motet.
La torre
Thank you all so much. I just wanted to let everyone know that I believe there's a reception out in the small waiting area out here, so please join us, and thank you so much for coming.